Municipal bills, clearly as city residents, is something that we all, those of us who are fortunate enough to be in a position to pay bills, are concerned about, and something that we have consistently reported on in the state of city finances, precisely for that reason, to provide a citizen perspective, if you will, on municipal bills. And what we do in the report is we do a series of calculations to establish 4 different categories of municipal bills, from the lowest income who are due to pay municipal bills to the highest income group, 4 different categories, and correlate those with standard costs of providing electricity, water, sanitation, and also waste facilities to those packages. And based on that, then are able to speak to the affordability of municipal bills for a resident within each one of those 4 categories. And we find that across the board, the price of municipal service packages has increased in real terms, which is clearly of concern to residents. And additionally, we find that the price increases have been highest for the lower income packages and lowest for the higher income packages. So to explain that a bit further, for the 4 different price categories I mentioned, service packages type A, which is the lowest income, have increased by 2.1%. For type B, they increased by 2%. Type C, which is 1.2% increase, and type D was a 1.1% increase. So once again, type A is for the lowest income customers, and type D would be the highest earning customers. And so this suggests straight away that, in fact, the people with the lowest incomes are finding that their bills are increasing to a greater extent than people with higher incomes, which clearly is not something that is ideal. If you think about the tax system, we have an income tax system where people who earn more pay percentage-wise a greater proportion of their income towards the state. And we'd want to see the same in terms of municipal bills. So to use a fancy term, we prefer that the bills are considered to be progressive. So in other words, the more you earn, the more you pay. And in the case of city billing, this is not necessarily the case, which in a country with the inequalities that we have is clearly an issue of some concern. Having said that, however, the affordability for all packages has improved. And so this sounds like a contradictory finding, but actually what we're finding is that affordability has improved slightly for lower income packages and remains stable or become progressively more affordable for higher income packages, which is in keeping with the description and the explanation of the package and pricing dynamics that I mentioned before. What we are finding, however, is that services are not affordable for the poorest. And the way we're able to determine this is that we use a 10% benchmark of income as an indicator of an affordable bill. So any bill that is greater than 10% of the income of a resident, we'd say is unaffordable to them. And we find that type A customers, who once again are the lowest income customers, pay more than 10% of their income towards municipal bills in all the cities, except for Ekurhuleni. Whereas customers in all the 3 other categories, so types B, C, and D, spend less than 10% of their income on municipal bills. Now, this is obviously quite a complicated picture that cities need to deal with, and actually setting city tariffs and budgeting associated with it is a difficult balancing act for cities. And this is something that perhaps residents are not necessarily always aware of, but it's something that we get into in some detail in the report. And cities, in fact, are facing a dilemma. Their populations and households are growing rapidly. As we mentioned, urbanization is constantly on the increase. And urbanization typically affects, is a phenomenon that is for lower income groups. At the same time, the economic environment in which cities operate is slow, unemployment is rising, and housing incomes are also being affected by these macroeconomic trends. And it's only the wealthiest, in fact, whose incomes are increasing over this period of time. And so ultimately, cities can only provide services within their financial ability. At the end of the day, they face costs for providing those, and then they also have to recover revenue in providing those services. So this is the difficult equation that cities do in fact have to balance. And we consider this question in the report and suggest that in this regard, cities may consider a number of options, and they may need to consider some interventions. So number 1 would be scaling back services to make them more affordable. Perhaps the other would be to increase the focus on core services. And this is something we discuss in terms of the broader fiscal framework, which suggests that there may be some unfunded mandates which cities are taking on and they're not necessarily receiving compensation for. We also suggest that they may avoid these unfunded or expanding mandates, and then also that they may make better use then of revenue sources other than property rates and tariffs, and think about perhaps additional revenue sources to supplement their revenue streams. And we indeed end this section of the report with a discussion that suggests that perhaps it's time for cities to consider an additional revenue instrument, additional local tax instrument, in order for them to meet the costs of their mandates.